Great good morning, everyone. It is a beautiful Monday. What are we? Is this June 2nd already? Incredible. 2025. This is the Bob Cordaro Show, and I am he. Broadcasting today from the United States of America, the country I love. It's the place where the brave, like the veterans we pay tribute today, thanks to our man, John Basiliga, and his fine companies. Joseph Namatka, Duryea. Joseph Geiger, South Scranton. Stephen Wisda, Peckville. Rich Abdallah, Scranton. Henry Newman, late of California. He was from Berwick. And Larry Bittler, Bloomsburg, formerly of Danville. They made us, they kept us free. The United States of America, founded with a certain knowledge and understanding by our incredible founding fathers, that the government is not, shall not be, cannot be our parent, our guide, our direction, our salvation. Not any of these things, but is nothing more than a necessary evil we require to organize and protect society. The United States of America, the country where, for the first time in human history, freedom was declared to be an unalienable right granted to each individual by God. It was not something to be parceled out to groups. It could not be controlled by government or government officials because our great American Constitution ensured and codified freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of association, economic freedom, and freedom of the press. So they use it to lie. So what? We're smarter than that. Now, armed with these freedoms, and only because they had them, a ragtag bunch of immigrants, rejects, and their progeny created the richest, most powerful, most culturally diverse and accepting nation ever to grace our planet Earth. America, the only place specifically invented and designed so that every American can live their life in the manner they choose. Unlimited by their background, upbringing, race, color, or creed. Unhindered by the government or those who would use government to control others for their own comfort, benefit, or power. This Bob Cordaro Show will always be convincingly conservative, lovingly logical, proudly and passionately patriotic, and reliably right. And so, we gavel to order this meeting of the Club for Common Sense, kicking off a new week, promising you a sanctuary of sanity for as long as we can. We're looking forward 3 hours. So for the balance of the morning. And just a reminder, it's not a safe harbor for stupidity. We will not suffer fools gladly. Well, great weekend. I don't know about you guys. A little tiring. See, Cutie was away. So I for whatever reason, this never happens, and I don't like it at all. It just, one of those weeks that came together. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, out every night. And me no likey, to put it bluntly. And then, the Mastiff and Ponk the cat, they were my companions when I was home. But got to go to my friend Matt Kennedy. His mom had died, Betty Kennedy. Nice, great woman. And so I was together with my Abington friends, some of whom went to University of Rochester with me, and then their friends. So that was a great Friday night, sad occasion. And then Saturday, just walked to Ragnacci's from the Hill section. And with Mr. Paul and the Lewises, and we had a great evening. Timmy Mack showed up later. But then yesterday, I stayed up much later than usual. The 10 o'clock flight, it was 10:10 flight to pick up Cutie at the airport. I only fly out of Wilkes-Barre Scranton. I tried, you have this thing, I'm saving. Well, it costs you money to get there. If you drive yourself, it costs you money to park. And to me, there's nothing more I don't know what you'd call it. These are the small nits of life. But there's nothing more aggravating than you've gone through the airport deal, which is always, a headache. Not on the way, but on the way back. And then you've got to drive for 2 hours? What? So, no. So, Cutie flew into Scranton, thank God. Scranton Wilkes-Barre, our airport. It's a great little airport, and it gets the job done. And you will save money in the long run. You really will. All the effort, all the aggravation. Come on, stop it. So, anyway, picked her up there. But it's great to be back with you guys. I always say, God willing. Well, God willed it, and we're here. Now, one problem today. So if you're texting me, the text, it says, we're sorry, but something went wrong. And the Bulldog was looking at it and trying to deal with it, and it just, so I don't have it. And I apologize. So you know what? You're going to have to call. And I will promise this, I'll do better on the calls. I'll promise to do better on the calls. All right. By the way, I hope you guys appreciate. It just has to happen, not necessarily once a week, but often enough that we never forget that in 1965, If I Were the Devil was written and delivered by, one of the all-time radio greats, maybe the all-time radio great, Paul Harvey. And then to have Paul Harvey, Ronald Reagan, and Victor David Hanson, well, better than hearing me, I must tell you. And so for some of you, we've got to hear from these people. We have to. Their knowledge, their wisdom, their experience, they age incredibly well. All right, we'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. Let's hear from our great sponsors. We'll come back with a little history, a little music, and then 570-883-0098. The lines are open. Ray Charles, the number one hit this date, 1962. That's what Murph tells us. I Can't Stop Loving You. And an enjoyable Saturday. See, not only Mr. Paul and the Lewises, but you get to hang around with Murph. And then, of course, Bobby Regnacci. And then Guy Valvano's wife and Mrs. Iezzi and Mrs. Valvano came in. Two grand dames in their 80s and 90s. It's just, it's always a pleasure. And our friend Joe Durkin was there. He was coming from his reunion. Now, Joe's one of these guys, he looks like he did 40 years ago. But if his class, he was at his, 66th class reunion up at beautiful Mount Airy Casino. And he came home from that and stopped at Rags's. And I'm like, I never realized how old. If he said he was 70, I would have said, okay. Remarkable. So just a great cast of characters that shows up at that place and was enjoyable. Hey, a great weekend down at, and I heard from a lot of people down at the Stegmeyer Mansion. And a great weekend up at Queen City Tavern. So the Basilica properties were humming over the weekend. Cannot wait. I've been there, but I can't wait to go and dine and hang around and everything at the Mary Stegmeyer Mansion. That's a big deal. Anyway, so many things going on. We've had this intergender insanity going on in California. Look at, we're not discriminating against you. You were born a boy. Okay, enough said. No more to be said. There's no point. And if you've got gender dysphoria, well, there's going to be restrictions on what you could do. Just like, hey, I was never taller than 5'10". I was not going to be a power forward in the NBA. Period. That's it. And yet, to have something that is essentially a disease, and I believe it exists, I don't think these kids are making it up. I don't think they're looking for attention, maybe a tiny, tiny percentage. But if you don't get special privileges because there's something wrong, we need to treat you with enduring compassion. And then when you turn 18, 19, whatever, when you become an adult, then you make the decision how you live your life. But that does not entitle you to play sports against girls. And they say, well, it's not widespread. Well, California state, so that's every woman who competes in, 2 or 3 events in track in the entire state of California is affected by this gender insanity. And it happened in Maine, it happened in Oregon, it happened in Illinois, it happened in PA. It's got to stop. And by the way, not for nothing, it's against the law. We don't want to forget that just because Trump made the law by executive decision. Well, Biden made it by executive decision, and they complied. The left-wing lunatics. Trump makes an executive order reversing that. And then when it was to be codified in legislation, every single, I want you to remember this, every single Democrat voted against keeping boys and young men out of girls' locker rooms, bathrooms, and sporting events. Every single one. And they're worried about their messaging. Their messaging. Mr. Paul texting in. 5'10". Yes, I was measured at 5'10" and more, maybe a half in college. Yes, Mr. Paul. Mr. Paul is short and stocky. And maybe resentful that maybe I was that tall at one time. I know I'm not now, but that's another story. That's aging. All right, we've got to take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. We will take that break. We will come back and continue the program. Veterans Tribute this hour, brought to you by John Basiliga and his great companies. Our veterans this hour and every hour, this day and every day, brought to you by John Basiliga and his incredible companies. By the way, Monday night, looking for fine dining? Guess what's open? A Terra 519. That crown jewel of restaurants in downtown Scranton. They're open tonight. Yes, indeed. Joseph Geiger, lifelong resident of South Scranton. He passed away April 12th. His wife of 59 years, Alice, she passed away in 2018. He was born in 1925. That means he was 99 when we lost him. Youngest of 9 children, graduate of St. Mary's High School. He then attended the University of Scranton. Joe was a U.S. Navy veteran of World War II, serving aboard the USS Formo in the South Pacific. He received the World War II Victory Medal, Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal, the China Service Medal, the Navy Occupation Medal, and the Philippines Liberation Ribbon. He was employed by the Veterans Administration and later the U.S. Postal Service for 37 years. Long line of great mailmen. National Association of Letter Carriers. For 75 years, he was a member of that organization. Commander of his local VFW post, and then the quartermaster for 17 years. Member of St. Mary of Assumption Church, then St. Paul of the Cross. Exceptional husband, father, grandfather, devout Catholic, hard worker, good neighbor. Surviving are his son, his daughters, his grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. Preceded in death by all 8 of his siblings, sadly. Joseph Geiger. Joseph Namatka. He was 89 when he passed April 1st. He was from Duryea, born there, raised there, graduate of Duryea High School. 1954 graduate, he met his high school sweetheart and future wife, the former Marianne Soa, who passed away in 2000. Joe enlisted in the United States Air Force in 1955 and served as an aircraft electrical repairman at McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey. He worked various jobs locally in Jersey as well until he secured a job as an electronic repairman at the Toba Ann Army Depot, finally retiring in 1995. Devout Catholic, member of the Nativity of Our Lord Parish, Duryea. Always ready to lend a helping hand to neighbor or friend, and a devoted caregiver to family members for many years. Preceded in death by his infant brother, Raymond. Brothers and sisters. He's survived by his daughter and a grandson, Joseph Namatka. Our great veterans this hour brought to you by our man John Basiliga and his great companies, reminding you Monday night can be fine dining night at Atera 519. Oh, I guess that means the weather. Did you give me the weather, Bulldog? Yes, you did. Storm Tracker 16 forecast from meteorologist Joe Snedeker today. Early morning fog, then a mix of clouds and sun. It's going to be about 72. It's a beautiful morning. Tonight, partly cloudy, 48. Tuesday, more sun than clouds, milder, 82. Wednesday, sunny and humid, 88. How about that? Anyway, we're back. Bob Cordaro, WILK. So, somebody texted in, take a break. You just got started. What is this, government radio? No, we've got to, listen, we got to pay the bills. And I'm telling you, I love these sponsors. They are great companies, many of them family companies. And even the ones that are irrelevant to me, like the California Psychics, I still find myself whistling that. Do you? And then Wayne Bank. And obviously, there's a lot of these local family companies have been around for generations. Coast Tire, Giant Floor. I just love it. The Fashionable Laundry. They're just great companies. So, no, I'm not actually taking a break. I'm working during the commercial. So, just to say that, smarty pants. In any event. Mr. Paul saying he was of average height, not short. Yeah. I must have triggered him saying I was 5'10". I was, they used to do accurate measures for football, height and weight. One year I was even recorded as 5'11", which is why I know I was more than 5'10". Okay? So there. Somebody texted in, Bob, Paul Harvey's recitation blows me away. My God, was he a psychic? How profound. And so thank you for playing that piece. Listen, people, LTS. LTS back at you. That's the truth. It's the truth. It's a big deal. Man, you trying to talk about prescience. You want to talk about, man, people knowing Something. How did you make these predictions back then? I mean, he's describing everything that happened 60 years later. Hey, Bob Cinderblock here. If it makes you feel any better, another well-known talker, Joe Rogan's only 5'8". And he could beat the crap out of most of us, yeah. No, I'm not. I don't have, when you're young, you care about that. I don't care. What do I care now? I don't care. You are what you are. And we'll live with it. And happily so, by the way. Yeah, Tommy P checking in. Yeah, this Stegmeyer Mansion, I'm just dying to get down there to see it open and operating. And I'm telling you, Wilkes-Barre, Luzerne County, and I travel down there all the time. I don't look at the border. Oh, by the way, speaking of the border, this is something that's been bothering me. Now, gas prices are, with exceptions, there's a place in Clark Summit, gas prices are between 10 and 15 cents higher in Lackawanna County than they are in Luzerne County. I don't understand it. What is that about? Now, I've explained this, and my Uncle Jim Savico told me this once, and I pretty much know it to be true. They're underneath the ground. Like when you're getting near the airport on 81 South or North, maybe after the airport north, before the airport south, there is a solid barrier underground that had never been penetrated. So the mines in Luzerne County ended. I'll stand corrected if this is not accurate. The mines in Luzerne County, at least in that area of 81, they stop. And then the mines in Lackawanna County also stop coming south. Yeah, somebody says Luzerne and Lackawanna County, they call it the Mason-Dixon line. They always made that joke. Now, it hasn't been for me. We started the bank in Pittston. I've never thought that way. I love Luzerne County. I love, every county in this listenership, quite obviously. But there is an actual subsurface physical barrier between Luzerne and Lackawanna County. Now, does that have anything to do with the gas prices? I don't know how it could. Why are gas prices that much more expensive? I'm not getting it. You check it out. I drive to Luzerne County every day. Well, most days. Well, even on the weekend. I'm always going down that way. I'm not getting it. What is that all about? So, I don't know. If anybody knows why, please pitch in. Because you got to get your gas in Luzerne County. If you can. I'm coming here anyway. So we'll see. Bob Cordaro, WILK. It is time for a commercial break. I'm not taking a break. A commercial break. Let's hear from our great sponsors. We'll come back with a little music from Murph and talk some more. 570-883-0098. I've got my Bulldog came in and I've got my texts now. 570-883-0098. The Rolling Stones, Murph says they made their American debut concert at Lynn High School football field, Lynn, Massachusetts. This date, 1964, they opened up with that song, Not Fade Away. You realize how long that is and these guys are still playing? And by the way, not quite the welcome that the Beatles got at Shea Stadium. But look who's still around, right? All right, well, there's a guy we haven't heard from in a while, and I love talking to. It's our man, Pat from Clark's Green. Patrick, how are you, my friend?
Good morning, Reverend. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm even better now that I'm hearing from you.
Well, how much can we take? Today it's the Jews. Tomorrow it's the Catholic and the Christians.
Yep.
And last week they already started on the Christians in Seattle, Washington, where they even took balloons loaded with urine.
Yep.
And roughed them up and everything. We can't take any more. And all of these colleges where these demonstrations are, they have to seek out those people and find out who they are, if they're on a visa or they're not a citizen, because people on visas and non-citizens cannot go out and march and protest like they're doing. They ought to be shipped right the hell back out of the country. They're out to destroy America.
Well,
we have to understand that.
Yeah.
We can't take it anymore. You take Iran. I think Trump is. I know he's anti-war, but you can't trust the Iranians. It's. We have to listen to General Jack Keane and bomb the hell out of those atomic places that where they're making the bomb. They might even have the bomb now. So that we have to go and get Iran
Pat,
right now.
Iran, as I point out often, that's why I'm 100% in accord with you. Iran is trying to get a nuclear weapon in order to use it. Not to have it, not for deterrence, but to use it.
Exactly. You can't trust them. And because they're out to take over the world. And they're here in the country here now. All those Palestinians that are bad and the Islamic people, we gotta find out who they are and get rid of them.
I point out, the thing I point out, Patrick, every time we discuss this, I point out Islamists are bad. Religious fanatics of any stripe are bad, but the Islamists, they're not. There's Muslims who are fine. You could live next door. You could normal. Any religious fanatic is dangerous, and they're coming in with the intent to take over the country, without doubt.
Yeah, and they're here, and you're right when I say when they have it, they're going to use it, and we have to find out who's financing them, giving them money. If we can trace them down, we'll sue them for treason.
Hey,
so,
one of the people.
That's my message for the day.
Well, Pat, I'm so happy to have that message from you. I'm grateful you called. I love it.
Well, I'm really upset, and we should all take a moment and a prayer of thanks for the change that we elected Donald Trump.
Amen. Amen. Thank
God
you, Patrick.
Bless.
Appreciate it.
Right, Bob.
All right.
Bye-bye.
My friend, and I don't know, he's 90. How old is Pat? Mid-90s. Veteran. The brother was, I think two brothers were veterans as well. And there's a great American. Man. Oh, I love you, Patrick. Back on to the prosaic. Always wonder myself why prices are so different. Gas is $2.99-ish in Stroudsburg. So it's even worse in Luzerne than Stroudsburg. How about that? And now somebody says, and I don't agree with you, it's all about greed, Bob, just like the car dealers in Lackawanna and Luzerne County, greed. No. And look at, your job is to get as much money as you can. But if your local competitors have lower, there's got to be something more to it, by the way. There has to be. Because there's two stations in Lackawanna County that are consistent. One on Route 6, I think it's a Sunoco, and one in Clark Summit, in the Notch, past the Notch, that are even cheaper than Luzerne County. So there's something else going on. It's not greed. You sound like Joe Biden. Oh, the greedy gas station owners. Hardly. So calm down with that. Somebody said, did you mention Bernard Carrick passing? No, I did not. I just I met him once and I didn't like him. I shouldn't hold that against him. He's certainly accomplished a few things. And by the way, in prison, he hung around with the guards. So I was resentful of that, too, to be frank. But, God bless him. Bloomberg Money Minute. We'll be back. The Beatles. This date, 1967, Murph says they released their album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, with a little help from my friends. And Ringo Starr. Great song. And 1979, the beginning of the turning. John Paul II arriving in his native Poland. And he pointed out, your communist leaders are scum. I know he didn't use those words, but his very presence demonstrated it. They're evil and they're scum. And he and Ronald Reagan overturned the entire communist hierarchy and control. Now, evil resurfaced in Russia, resurfaced in China, and elsewhere. But an historic partnership to face off against what was, because they wouldn't accept it. Neither one. Neither Reagan nor the Pope. Quite amazing. Anyway, we've got to go to the news because it's time. It's actually a little overtime. Let's go to the news with Brian Hughes. We're going to come back. We've got Monday Musings on a Monday. Isn't that great? And a bunch of you texting in about the gas. Somebody said the gas prices are higher in Lackawanna County because there's maintenance on the Joe Biden Expressway sign. That's a good one. All right, we'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. News time. We'll be back. Great good morning, everyone. 10:11 a.m. here in the great Northeast. This beautiful Monday, June 2nd, 2025. That includes the weather, by the way. This is the Bob Cordaro Show, and I am he. And it's a big day to fight for America, defend our values, and with the help of John Basiliga and his incredible companies, to honor the brave who have made us and kept us free. People like veterans we lost this year, but celebrate today thanks to John. Joseph Geiger, South Scranton. Joseph Namatka, Duryea. Rich Abdallah, Scranton. Stephen Wisda, Peckville, formerly of Hazleton. Henry Newman, Berwick, late of California. And Larry Bittler, late of Bloomsburg, formerly of Danville. So with history, our founding fathers, and the incomparable Constitution of the United States of America as our guides, let us continue today's battle. Gaveling to order this meeting of the Club for Common Sense. Well, I like to play those things. Wes Austin, spelled just like the city. He's a lawyer, comedian on Instagram. He's really got good stuff. And then you heard... Guys, please tell me. Somebody tell me that she has a grain of intellect, AOC. She's one of the dumbest people on the planet. And she just keeps talking and proving it. So, by the way, one of the most outraged people that the Trump administration isn't going into El Salvador with a SEAL team and breaking their Maryland man out of prison and bringing him back to here. It's insane. Insane people. They're dumb, and dumber. So anyway, yeah, check out that Wes Austin. He's really got good stuff. Good stuff. Hey, WILK contest, Giant Floor. We're helping Giant Floor celebrate 60 years by giving you a chance to win 3 rooms of carpeting installed, including padding, valued at $1,965 the year Giant Floor opened. Giant Floor since 1965 with locations in Bartonsville, Wilkes-Barre, and Scranton. Go to WILKnewsradio.com. Click contests to enter. You can enter once per day. And then if you choose, you press watch, and you can see my alternately smiling and scowling moon face there as well. Well, it's Monday. And you know what we do on Monday. Bulldog. You know what we do on Monday. Yeah. We do Monday musings whenever we can. And this is our man, John Perillo. John, how are you?
I'm always happy to hear your smiling face, too. So,
yes.
Hey, I'm always a little disappointed when the news seems to back up some of the stuff I've been talking about. Last week we kind of discussed the prerequisites for civil wars. Things like perception of government illegitimacy or a mismatch between economic expectations and realities in populations, loss of majority status, the division of cultures and countries into tribes, the hyphen, if you will, before the American in our current system. And we discussed how civil wars had been thought of as typically a third world problem until a British historian named David Betts began researching these types of wars in order to help the British military understand what caused them, and in the hopes of making their military safer and more efficient. And what he discovered was that the West was increasingly looking more and more like those third world countries that he was studying from a civil conflict standpoint. And this week I wanted to continue with that a little bit. I wanted to start with how civil wars like that are fought. And there's this kind of dangerous undercurrent out there of people thinking that somehow it will be okay if we descend into chaos. And one of the things that makes and made civil war so horrific is that each side knows the adversary so well because in a sense they're related. So they know each other's strengths and weaknesses. And if you were to go back and think about, in particular, the civil wars of, say, Russia after the takeover of the Bolsheviks in 1917, they were horribly cruel. I mean, disturbingly so, because the fight wasn't against someone for what they did, but rather for who they are. And that's going to be a critical thing for us going forward. Think for a moment about the burning of children by Hamas, either in front of their mothers or quite literally physically tied to them. You cannot do such a horrible thing without thinking that the other is quite literally not human.
Yeah.
And that may seem to be beyond what we're at the West. And I would have said that up, this weekend now we see another example of this. But I think it is for the most part, but not entirely. And some of the rhetoric that we hear about either conservatives or liberals is really quite disturbing. And it isn't that one side says that the other side is wrong, but rather that each side seems to be saying that the world would be better off without the other's existence. And just what do you think the phrase "globalize the Intifada" actually means? Right? The expression of hatred becomes a rallying cry for conflict, and everybody needs to tone that down. And people aren't saying that so-and-so is wrong, but rather that the techniques of the Intifada can legitimately be used against those with whom they disagree. Mm-hmm. And that is why the killing of 2 young Israeli embassy personnel is really not that remarkable, nor is the firebombing, the literal firebombing with Molotov cocktails up here in Colorado, just yesterday. I mean, if the Intifada is indeed global, then why should we expect anything different? Oh, and those are 2 attacks, by the way, that happened in the U.S. One of them in the capital of the U.S. and another 2 hours up from my spread down here. Right. So I think some of my conservative friends are just exhibiting some frustration when they say that the left, should, quote, bring it when it comes to conflict. And I mean, I understand we're better armed and generally we know how to use guns. But the point is that the language itself is dangerous, because I assure you nobody wants a civil war. And if you doubt that, just ask some of my colleagues who spent some time in the Middle East. The horrors that you see there are difficult to describe, let alone understand. And of course, it isn't just the right that needs to control its language. Professor Betts quoted this piece from a French leftist, which I thought was really something. So I'm going to quote it here. It's well known that the streets teem with incivilities. The technical infrastructure of the metropolis is vulnerable. Information and energy can be attacked. In our time of utter decadence, the only thing imposing about temples is the dismal truth that they are already in ruins, end quote. And what that translated means that the only thing keeping the French radicals from attacking French infrastructure is it's already a mess, so why bother? Right? And ever since 9/11, the U.S. and really much of the civilized world has been working to try to stem the civil wars of others without really keeping track of what was happening under our noses. But civil wars include horrible things like kidnapping children from other tribes, killing them with hand drills, blowing up cultural events, killing teachers and religious leaders from other tribes, ripping down statues. And I should point out that every single one of those things that I just listed has happened in France, not Somalia, but France in the last 5 years. And there's been a bunch of novels already written about civil war in the U.S., and most are not really worth reading. But the one thing that they generally get right is that the next civil war will not be like the last U.S. one. There's a military historian from Ohio State, Peter Mansour, who said that the next civil war will, quote, not be like the first American Civil War with armies maneuvering on the battlefield, but would very much be a free-for-all, neighbor on neighbor, based on beliefs and skin color and religion, and it would be horrific, end quote. And I don't know Professor Mansour, but I do know that the data backs him up. And the data says that about 75% of all the post-Cold War conflicts have been between ethnic factions. But his quote includes the word beliefs, which I think is particularly disturbing. Last week we explored a bit about how beliefs get reinforced by social media, by an echo chamber in the media, and increasingly, in my opinion, by an industry that profits from those divisions. On both sides, by the way. The very concept of identity politics creates tribes, and a quick flip through something like Facebook will get you at least a couple of comments along the lines of, the world would be better off if we just got rid of so-and-so, or worse, this or that group. And identity politics revolve around the belief that either ethnicities or racial groups or religious groups have interests that are at odds with others, and that there's no longer a common group like nationalities or, heaven forbid, humanity, for instance, to which these other groups belong. And if you believe that then conflict between those identities isn't just possible, it's, according to Professor Betts, almost inevitable. But other countries have not been heterogeneous, right? I mean, they're comprised of different tribes and different religions, et cetera. Why didn't they descend into civil war? So why does what we're seeing now seem so different? Why does this professor believe that what we now have is more likely to head to civil war than the U.S. was when, the Italians, the Irish, the blacks, all were here, all had their traditions, and all could be readily identified by their tribe. So what's changed? And there are a couple of things that seem to make this time a bit different here in the U.S. And the first is that the ability of warring groups to organize, which has always been a limiting factor in the beginning of conflicts, is better enabled by social media than has ever been in the past. And in the military, we refer to the inability to communicate quickly or to the problem of bad intel, stuff like that, as, quote, friction. And when you're fighting nations, friction is something that you try to inflict on your adversary by jamming their communications or interrupting logistics, stuff like that, right? But in a potential civil conflict, both sides would have access to the same communications and the same ability to resupply. And then there's something quite insidious about the way multiculturalism is taught in the U.S., right? There's a great pressure for various ethnicities, for instance, to vote a certain way or to hold certain acceptable political views. So things like ethnic pride appear to be reserved to all groups except for whites. And for instance, it's always been a fact that blacks vote overwhelmingly liberal, right? But beyond that, it's seen as something of a heresy when somebody like Thomas Sowell or Clarence Thomas breaks the pattern. Their tribe tends to shun them, call them Uncle Toms or worse. But if whites were to vote uniformly, it's seen as something dark and evil and deeply racist. And again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's just a fact, right? And because of that, you'll hear some white groups say quite often that if you exchange white for black in this or that phrase or situation, the way people perceive things is different. And in essence, there's a perception that there are rules that apply only to the majority, decreasing as it may be, that apply to nobody else. And because of that, it's very easy to then have the same discussion as one of justice. This group being treated differently than that group just seems to be fundamentally unfair. And if you add to that the factor that the loss of power is another high predictor in civil conflict, and you see that some of what is current intellectual orthodoxy, it's in fact really dangerous stuff. And again, this isn't my opinion. This is what the research
Well, John Perillo, let's be blunt about this. Islamists and groups like Antifa, the far left, have joined hands in creating chaos and hating America from within our borders. And that's the gravest threat we've ever faced, in my view, after the Civil War.
Well, I think, and Bob's onto something there, right? So, if you add to that the fact that now we hate our past because we don't understand it, and then you have what we talked about last week a little bit, the quote great replacement theory. It's just math. It's not really debatable. Americans of European lineage will be the minority in the U.S. unless they have more children, and Europeans in Europe will be the minority in Europe far sooner than that. And that means that the groups that once decided what language was going to be spoken, what laws were going to be enforced, will no longer be in a position to do so. This is just what Bob's saying. And again, that's not a value statement. I'm not telling you it's right or wrong. I'm telling you that it is. And remember that, as we said earlier, dominant groups falling from their position was yet another key factor in the data that shows that it leads to civil war. And then, again, along something Bob talked about, just think about this for a second. When you add to that factor physical segregation, it's also very true that cities are far more heterogeneous than the rural parts of the U.S. and Europe, right? So not only have you segregated ideas, not only have you decided which rules will be reinforced based on location and population, not only have you decided that there can be rules that are applied unevenly for reasons of equality, let that thought sink in just for a second, but you've largely put these differing groups in differing physical areas. And we are already seeing some of the effect of that in certain things like no-go zones in Europe and in the U.S. And what we saw this weekend where, essentially we have a lawless area where somebody decides they can hate the other and attack them, and the press can quite literally say, we have no motive, which is, absurd in itself. So let's wrap this segment today. We'll take another step next week. But my point here isn't to defend any group or to say that our treatment of minorities is right or wrong or anything of the sort. I'm imploring you to understand that the biblical injunction against hate wasn't put in place just to save your individual souls, although that's clearly of utmost importance. It was also put in place to save our civilization from complete annihilation. There are no others, right? As Bob said, I'm thinking last week his caller Frank on Friday. Frank is part of our tribe. We don't have to agree with him. We don't have to like him, right? But we cannot hate him, right? The absolute non-negotiable in Western civilization is the worth of the individual because they're created in God's image. And the moment we decide that's no longer a capital T truth, all kinds of horrors are possible. And please, please, please keep that in mind.
And
right?
what is happening in Europe, specifically with Islamists, is a preview for what could happen in the United States if we don't prevent it. Mass rioting in Paris around the Champs-Élysées on Saturday night. I mean, I got this report from it's a Jeller report. You're not getting general media coverage of this stuff because it doesn't fit the lunatic left narrative.
Well,
so they're trying to ignore it and turn us, who are concerned about Islamists, like Iran, the Iranian leadership, and point out like Hamas, their danger. And
Bob, how absurd is it that a guy yelling "Free, Free Gaza," throwing Molotov cocktails at a pro-Israeli march in Colorado, that the press can get there at the end of it and say we don't know the motive?
Yeah, and one of the victims is reportedly was a victim of the Holocaust as well. I mean, this is getting to biblical proportions, and to call those of us xenophobes or racist or anti-Muslim, which I am none of those things, I promise you. The Islamists are a clear and present danger to civilization, not just in America, but it's coming here now. John Perillo, thank you. Always a pleasure. We appreciate it, and we look forward to next week.
Yeah, thank you again to you and your listeners. I hope you have a safe and blessed week. And again, thank you for sharing your morning with me on Monday. And take care and be good.
All right, my man. John Perillo, Monday Musings. We'll be back. Our veterans this hour and every hour, this day and every day. Brought to you by John Basiliga and his great companies, including Eastern Roofing Systems, the premier roofing company, commercial and institutional, and the Eastern Seaboard. Well, they'll bring all that expertise to your home right here in Northeast Pennsylvania. Eastern Roofing Systems. The Basiliga Hospitality Group. Well, last week was a banner week. They not only reopened the great Queen City Tavern to incredible reviews and great crowds. They opened the Stegmeyer Mansion, South Franklin Street in Wilkes-Barre, to equal a Terra 519 in fine dining. Incredible. And Terra's open tonight. Monday Night Fine Dining is alive and well at a Terra 519 downtown Scranton. Well, a guy I knew, Rich Abdallah. He died March 10th. He was from Scranton. He passed away at the music home of his twin brother, Michael, where he lived the last few months of his life. A beloved coach and teacher, whether it was mornings at the donut shop, walking Lake Scranton or the River Trail, golfing at Lakeland with Red, or enjoying a cigar on his front porch. He was proud to have been born 10 minutes earlier than the twin who cared for him at the end of his life. He taught at Bishop Klonowski, coaching cross country. He also taught mathematics at Scranton Prep, coaching the girls' basketball team. He graduated from Scranton Prep in 1957 and the University of Scranton in 1961. He was ROTC and served us in the U.S. Army. He also earned a degree in physical education from East Stroudsburg. Survived by a slew of family members, including that twin brother, Rich Abdallah. Stephen Wisda. He was just 71 when he passed April 11th. He was from Peckville. Raised in Hazleton, graduate of Hazleton High School. He joined the Army and spent the bulk of his time serving us in Germany. He enjoyed the sights and cuisine of Europe during that time. He spent 40 years working at the VA Medical Center and the dental clinic. He enjoyed 11 years of retirement. He was always a happy person. Always had a kind word or a joke for everyone he met. Survived by his wife and soulmate, Joyce Wisda, his daughter, sons, grandchildren, and many family members. Stephen Wisda. Our great veterans this hour brought to you by John Basiliga and his fine suite of companies. Dine at a Terra 519 tonight. Storm Tracker 16 forecast from our man, meteorologist Joe Snedeker. Today, early morning fog, then a mix of clouds and sun, 72. Tonight, partly cloudy, 48. Tuesday, more sun than clouds, milder, 82. Wednesday, sunny and humid, 88. That's the direction. That's the trend. You heard him talking about that last week. Somebody said, is the giant floor contest over? Not that I'm aware of. There's a kill date on that promotion of June, what is it? I'll look it up right now because I looked before I read it. Yeah, June 8th is the kill date, so at 11:59 p.m. for that promo. And we love our guys at Giant Floor. Anyway, somebody texting, Bob LTS, isn't there an Islamic type city or whatever you call it in Texas being built? It's been proposed. And the governor there is blocking it. See, here's the problem. You have it in all religions. And I'm not doing that to just spread it out or make it nicer. But they segregate. And by the way, that's fine. But then they say, hey, our religious experience is more important than the civil law of the United States, and we're not going to follow it. In the case of the Islamists, their hatred toward Jews and Christians is intense, and we now have maybe the greatest wave of anti-Jewish actions. They call it anti-Semite. It's not. It's not anti-Semitism. Arabs are Semites as well. Arabs from that area. They're Semitic. So it's a misnomer. But anyway, anti-Jewish sentiment and actions are at a height we've not seen. And they are primarily perpetrated by Islamists. And then you have these stupid, idiotic fools protesting for Hamas from the river to the sea. They're so stupid and uneducated that you can't even. That's what I'm saying. How do you deal with somebody like AOC? How do you deal with someone that stupid? And they're committed to their stupidity. It's a conundrum, but you know how we do it? Common sense people of all stripes and even political beliefs. You don't back up AOC and idiots like that, Bernie Sanders, because they're part of your team, the Democrat Party. No, you call them out. Now, this stupid Rip Taylor fool, Governor Walz, he's running around speaking, well, the Democrats got to get meaner. Really? Meaner than Antifa? Meaner than the sick protesters at these college campuses? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Stupid? We've got to have people take the Democrat Party back to normality. I got sent this by our man John, not any of the Johns you know, but John, a guy named Dominic Pino. He says on, I think this is X, the Colorado Civil Rights Commission will be having a heated debate over whether throwing Molotov cocktails at Jews rises to the level of declining to bake a cake. Remember that, the cake case? I'm telling you, it's this weakness. It's this unwillingness to call out the truth that will be the death of us and our civilization. The greatest civilization ever known can be destroyed from within by weaklings from within. You're always going to have sick, stupid people. That's human nature. You're always going to have evil people. That's human nature. How you respond to them, how America responds to them. And we currently have a political party that's either deathly afraid or wants to use these lunatics for their own lunacy and lunatic purposes. So they're letting it pass. Oh, no, there's not a problem with Islamists. Really? Quite amazing and scary. All right, we'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. We'll hear from our great sponsors, and then we'll come back. Yeah, we're back. Bob Cordaro with you. I'm getting my man Mark Mayer sending me information. Paris was on fire over the weekend. Now, a couple of conclusions could be made from that. One of them made by somebody named Isabella Maria De Luca on X. If you import the third world, you become the third world. Does it make sense? Yes. They're living it. Another by a guy named, or someone named Radio Genoa. It says, while Paris burns, flags of Morocco and Palestine are waving. In other videos, flags of Algeria and Tunisia are waving. Is there anything else we need to know to understand who the criminals are? And Radio Genoa on another post to X, North Africans and Arabs devastate Paris. Now, I just want you to think about this, okay? You bring people into this country the way the Biden administration and the Democrats want, and you keep them here. And you don't teach them about America, about its rules, about what we believe. We will disintegrate to them, not them grow to us. You import the third world, you become it. Can't do it. These sick Democrat ideology, it's beyond the pale. And it's beyond devastating and frightening. It's literally indefensible. They're lying about everything the Trump administration is doing. So he says Bob Poland has the right idea. They don't allow Muslims to become citizens. I mean, that's a little... I'd like to look into what they actually mean by that. A typical, normal Muslim who's not an Islamist, not trying to enforce Sharia law over American law or Polish law, depending on the country, can be an incredible strength for a country. And they're conservative, by the way, on almost all of their views. They're using the left and Antifa and everything else, meaning the Islamists, to push their goals. And they're dumb enough to do it. The left and the Islamists. But the concept is correct. If you will not pledge that American law and the acceptance of religious people of other stripes and non-religious people are not only your equal, but are to be completely respected, you don't deserve to be an American, period. Now let's go to Tony from Carbondale. Tony, how are you?
Hi, buddy. I've been better after hearing this news from my niece that the Carbondale School District is letting transgender people in the ladies' room. I mean, where does it end?
Oh, dear God. And you know what? And you know what they have, the left-wing idiots that do these kind of things? They have us not wanting to look like we're mean. And you don't want to be mean to the child who's got gender dysphoria. But these kind of idiot parents are causing the problem. Wow.
Listen, there's gay people in my family. They don't have to push that issue where they're doing stuff like that. It's all brought upon them, I believe, by, how far can you get? Give them an inch, take a mile. Let's see if we can get 2 miles.
How do you do that to your students? Seriously,
Yeah.
I understand compassion to someone with gender dysphoria, and it actually exists in my book, and I believe it to be true. But other than compassion, you don't do these kinds of things. do you have any confirmation that this happened, or?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And not only that, well, let the guy, dude, woman, whatever, go into the teacher's lounge. He doesn't have to go in there and disturb all the girls. It's bad enough he's disturbing everybody by what he's doing.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it, my man.
Toodles.
Carbondale Area High School, maybe letting them run rampant. Now, here's your left-wing idiot. I'm sorry, I've got to call you an idiot. The fires in Paris were caused by fireworks from soccer fans celebrating. Did you see the fires? Why do you have to make everything about immigration? This is why I can only listen to you for 2 minutes every 2 weeks. You're a liar. You are a liar. That's not what is happening in Paris. You have no clue, and yet you will make a stupid statement like that. Fireworks. Yeah. Oh, my God almighty. You're too stupid to even talk to. That's a listener to the show. So I hope you heard how stupid you are in your 2 minutes. We'll be back. Well, the Senate, this date, 1986, it going to be televised. You remember, the House was televised long before the Senate. But Bob Dole, who I loved, I got to meet him through Arlen Specter, talking about that. He was a majority leader, I believe, at the time. Anyway, Crystal Blue Persuasion by the Shondells, Tommy James and the Shondells. This date, 1969, it was released. Bob Cordaro back with you on the eponymous program as we head towards the news. This is, somebody texted in exactly my sentiments. Bob, I always said immigrants cannot understand how we feel about our country because they do not share our history. The immigrants that study our history may get it, but to just come here and take all is making Americans angry. Our ancestors worked and fought for what they have. These new immigrants have no history here, therefore no true feeling of what was sacrificed. LTS back at you. It's the wrong way to do things, and even the lunatic left Democrats know. They know it is undermining our society. Now, the guy who committed this horrendous crime, trying to burn people to death, literally, and because they were Jewish. So the witnesses is almost like being in a battle zone or a war zone. The Biden administration let this guy overstay his visa. At some point, maybe even before he got here, he radicalized, and he's trying to burn people to death. You have to vet people who come into this country and vet people who stay in this country. Period. And the administration has to have discretion in kicking them out. Or you have this. And the Democrat Party is fighting tooth and nail to keep these kind of people in the country. I don't even understand it. Except if you hate the country. There's no good policy there. There's nothing that makes sense. Frank from Wilkes-Barre is holding. I don't think I'm going to take your call today, Frank. I don't have time for nonsense. This is deadly serious, and your blind ignorance is not welcome today. Just isn't. And it's time for the news. Bob Cordaro, WILK. I have not even seen reporting on Fox about these Paris riots. It's unreal. Europe is in incredible trouble. Their cultures are being, which have been nothing but admirable, are being overrun by migrants. I'll call them migrants there because they were allowed in. Coming to a theater near you. We'll take a break and be back. Great good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful Monday, June 2nd, 2025. Welcome to the Northeast. This is the Bob Cordaro Show. I am he, and it's a big day to fight for America, defend our values, and with the help of our man, John Basiliga, his incredible companies, to honor the brave who have made us and kept us free. People like veterans who passed away this year, but who we get to celebrate today. Like Henry Newman, Berwick, Larry Bittler, Bloomsburg, formerly of Danville, Stephen Wisda, formerly of Hazleton, late of Peckville, Rich Abdallah, Scranton, Joseph Geiger, South Scranton, and Joseph Namatka, Duryea. So with history, our great founding fathers, and the incomparable Constitution of the United States of America as our guides, let us continue today's battle. A reminder, this Bob Cordaro Show will always be convincingly conservative, lovingly logical, proudly and passionately patriotic, and reliably right. And yes, the double entendre is intended. Gaveling back to order after a brief news adjournment, this meeting of the Club for Common Sense. We promise you a sanctuary of sanity for the balance of the hour. Could you believe? Hamas, by the way, says they collaborate with U.S. campus protesters. It says we have our own people everywhere. We found this on the Geller Report. This is real, guys. You want to talk about the word existential is overused and abused. But sadly and frighteningly, it continues. Evil, religious zealotry, stupidity, and blind followership. Part of the human condition that doesn't go away, and all aspects of it are found not just in the Democrat Party today here in the United States, but leading it. Nuts, nuts, nuts. Well, we've talked to Kalen Deese before. He's the Department of Justice reporter for the Washington Examiner. And a recent decision caught everybody's eye. We've talked about it. Is the Supreme Court decision to deport that illegals could be deported immediately by the Trump administration. I don't think the Supreme Court has been clear, but on all of these issues, a lot of these issues. But Kalen Deese is with us, and we're going to talk to him about all of this. Kalen Deese, welcome back to the Bob Cordaro Show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Bob. It's a pleasure to be back.
All right, tell us about this decision, and was it definitive?
So you cut out there for a second. Are you talking about the decision on Friday with the temporary protective status for migrants? Is that what you're talking about? Or,
yeah, cut out. My apologies. Well, the decision regarding whether we could immediately deport people.
Right. So, yeah, we have been seeing from the Supreme Court on this front some surprising amounts of leeway that they're giving Trump. I know surprising, right, because we've been seeing all these different rulings go back against Trump in so many other jurisdictions. But when we're talking about what the Supreme Court has held about these mass Biden-era parole programs for people from Venezuela, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, we're seeing some movement for the Trump administration as far as these temporary rulings go. So the most recent one on Friday, I think involving over 500,000 of these migrants in these group classes, is giving the administration the leeway to go ahead and cancel those parole statuses for the people in that group. Now, that's a big, important decision to have on a non-merits basis, because here's the issue that liberal Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson brings up, and she's saying, well, if we go ahead and allow these the president to cancel these statuses here for these migrants, then that's going to create, in her mind, a whole boatload of irreparable harm because she's seeing like all these people, being able to be escorted out the nation. That's a big win for Trump. Well, what is the Supreme Court going to do if they allow this in the interim, but come back around, say weeks from now, months from now, and say actually, that amounts to a great amount of harm that these people are going to face, even though we know that it doesn't, because these temporary parole statuses were given under the Biden administration. They were never guaranteed permanent parole status so long as the president is someone not named President Joe Biden. So now with a new boss in town, we're going to start seeing, I think, more and more of these people under these Biden-era protective statuses getting ushered out the gate. And I don't know if there's going to be anything that can be done past that point because, I think to Justice Jackson's credit, she brings up a logical point. If we're saying now on a temporary basis that we're going to end these protections, well, how on earth are we going to reinstate them after we've, sent tens of thousands of people out of the country? You see what I'm saying? It's like, it seems like a good
but Kayla
sign.
Deese, I mean, the basic principle that an executive action can be undone by executive action is at stake and has so many other applications. It wasn't done legislatively.
You're right, yeah. And the thing is here is that the Supreme Court is at least showing some logic and balance on this particular issue because they understand that this executive action from Biden has to be able to be ruled null and void by a current president because otherwise you're just going to give more favor and status to something that another president did and basically allow them to, in essence, codify these legal protections that have never been in place for migrants under any other presidency. And that's just not right. And so I think that that's part of what, we're seeing by the investigation by Republicans right now in the House is look at all of these executive orders that Biden passed that were trying to sort of Trump-proof, the next 4 years. And I think that that's where a lot of the frustration is going right now is like, look at all these things that Joe Biden did that he probably only sort of half realized he was able to, sign. Like, I think that is where a lot of the animus right now is coming from Republicans is like, look at what they did to Trump-proof our nation over the last 4 years. Half the things that Biden probably signed are probably null and void because we know about the auto pins. So I think that that's what we're waiting on is the next update for that, which we're expecting in just a few days. I think Comer's team is getting ready to dealing us more information about what's going to happen with the 5 former Biden aides that they have brought under the limelight, and they are working on getting interviews with right now. So I think that these parole programs that we saw the Supreme Court undo, it's a good thing that the Supreme Court is doing that. But at the same token, we have these other policies that the justices are not letting up on, such as the travel ban ruling and this Kilmar Abrego Garcia case, which is also still a thorn in the administration's side. So we still have some ways to go before we start seeing the Supreme Court start to fall completely in line with the Trump administration.
Kalen Deese, our guest. He's the Department of Justice reporter for the Washington Examiner. Kalen, do you see any case wending its way through the process that will definitively limit or have the chance to definitively limit these national injunctions by local district courts?
So there is tentatively a ruling that could happen on that very issue that we saw, weeks ago when we had the birthright citizenship argument. If you remember, that was the case where we weren't looking at the issue of birthright citizenship, but we were looking at, we weren't even looking at the 14th Amendment question there. But, essentially what you're saying is, can the justices give an instruction, a binding ruling on lower court judges? And I think that is one of the major questions that, we'll have to figure out is, do they actually want to decide that decision, or do they actually want to maybe tee up the issue for oral arguments on the 14th Amendment question on whether Trump can end birthright citizenship? I know that that's a slightly unsatisfying answer.
Yeah, no. Well, the Supreme Court's slightly unsatisfying.
Right. Yeah, but exactly. So we saw from that oral argument that it didn't seem like they were, going to signal where they would go on that issue at all. I think what a lot of court watchers are hoping for is that there's going to be some kind of written decision that is unlike most rulings that we're accustomed to reading, but maybe something where the judges really get to air out, or I should say the justices get to air out their thoughts on lower court injunctions and the way that they should be handled.
Yeah.
Because I think that at least would give some proper guidance to lower court judges to see, okay, this is where the Supreme Court is feeling right now about these. Does the Trump administration have a point about judicial overreach, or do the justices think that the Trump administration is going out on a limb to make that sort of argument? I think people would like to see the Supreme Court offer a glimpse into their own views on what the Trump administration has been saying, because I think that, from the left, you're getting, this accusation of overreach, from the Trump administration's executive, powers. But I think the Trump administration is rightfully questioning, is the judicial branch out of control? Is it giving too much power to the judges? And I think that, we need some answers.
Well,
from the other side on this.
I think a reasonable response by the Supreme Court, and by the way, we played last hour, not this hour, the vapid AOC during the Biden administration, urging the Biden administration to ignore court orders. Now, she's one of the loudest screamers on the other side. But don't you think it would be a reasonable decision, and that there may be some basis in this, that a district judge can only issue an injunction for within the district they serve?
Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable, minimizing of their power. I think that wouldn't, create a situation where other people can't sue in other jurisdictions. Some people have, said that the off-ramp here for the Supreme Court is going to be allowing, these broader classes to come together to, enjoin a policy for like a set group of, say, a few thousand people here or there, depending on what the issue is in a certain state. I think that the Supreme Court was a little bit mixed on that class issue situation, because I think that they also see that there's a broader dilemma of allowing these class formations in every which way, to the point where you have multiple class actions, across the country that also confuses the system. One of the things that I've heard from professors, and I'll make this quick, they say from some of the bipartisan, approaches that could be brought to this issue is just create a system in which if there's a lower court judge being asked to enjoin a policy nationwide, create a 3-judge panel at the district court level, so you can create a situation where it's like 3 judges are weighing, this mass important issue of canceling an entire policy for the whole nation rather than leaving it up to one judge. At least at that situation, we'd have, a 2-to-1 sort of decision that would bring about, make this more of a well-considered question rather than. But
Kalen Deese, I mean, that's already available. Motion for reconsideration, it's already available.
Yes, at the reconsideration level, but this is an adage of getting a 3-judge panel at the beginning and then send it over to another 3-judge panel at the other reconsideration. So you're not stamping out, the middle appeals court, but you're still giving a very, important question rather to a single judge, but to 3 judges along the way, so that you're not.
I mean, you could find 3 fools in any district.
Mike Davis, I'll say this: Mike Davis has thrown this view out there, but he thinks that.
And I generally agree with him on what he prescribes. I just think they should not be allowed to issue injunctions that extend beyond their district. They've got to be kept in their place. It's crazy. I
have to agree with you there too. I think that it's egregious that we can't seem to just get, let's move the dish. Let's make the national injunction question one for a higher court rather than, for these, 500, 600 judges all across the country. Because as Gorsuch says, we're getting to a situation where one, judge has, and it's always a dice roll, because you never know what judge is going to have their own particular nitpick,
Yep.
And so it's like, that's the problem, is like, maybe we should either slim down the judiciary, or maybe we need to, cut off some of their powers.
Well, if you had, and remember, many of the circuit court issues are valid only within that circuit. The concept is actually being used. And then the Supreme Court is for national decisions, period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think that's also a very good argument, too, to be made. And that's why I think, going back to that, question about how they're going to rule in the 14th Amendment, not really the 14th Amendment question, but
on the birthright case of, can lower courts continue to, put out these injunctions? I think that we need some clarity from the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
It can't be the situation where they're quiet. I think that, whatever it's going to be, I think that it's going to have a lot of Roberts involvement, which, gives
which is scary.
some people, gives
He
a lot
likes
of
to
people
be
pause.
popular in D.C.
Yeah, he's definitely guiding, trying to split the baby as usual,
Yeah.
and no one likes when their infant is severed.
Yeah, well, and that's not how the law is supposed to work. You make decisions and you live with them.
No way, yeah. We need clarity.
Kalen Deese, thank you. Department of Justice reporter for the Washington Examiner. Please keep in touch. We'd like to hear from you often.
Absolutely. We'll be back soon.
Thank you. Kalen Deese, Washington Examiner, Department of Justice reporter, covering all these things. Well, for us, not just the Examiner. We'll take a break and be back. It's the Bob Cordaro Show. Our veterans this hour and every hour, this day and every day, brought to you by John Basiliga and his great companies. Don't forget about Serenity Care. 4 state-of-the-art, completely reconstructed personal care homes. The Mid-Valley section of Lackawanna County, Old Forge, Wyoming, and Kingston. 2 of those are memory care. State-of-the-art and the gold standard for senior care in Northeast Pennsylvania. And don't forget, from the Basiliga Hospitality Group, a Terra 519 open for fine dining this evening. Henry Newman, Berwick native, loved photography, history. Late of Sunnyvale, California, born in Berwick. He lived in Berwick, graduated from Berwick High School, class of 56. Attended Penn State University, graduating with an associate's degree in drafting. He worked for Commonwealth Telephone Company for many years until retirement in 2003. He also served us for 6 years in the Pennsylvania National Guard. In 1963, he married Barbara Sachs. Together, they raised 2 children. Former member of St. Peter's Lutheran Church, Plainfield Township. Since 2005, when he moved to California, he was a devoted member of the Lutheran Church of Our Savior, Cupertino, California. Usher, elder, trustee. Predeceased by his brothers and his parents, survived by his wife Barbara, their children, and grandsons. Henry Newman. Larry Bittler, Navy veteran. He enjoyed camping, hunting. He was 77. He lived in Bloomsburg, formerly of Danville. We lost him April 7th. Born in Danville, graduate of Danville High School's class of 1965. He then joined the United States Navy to serve us during the Vietnam War. Larry survived by his daughter, 3 grandchildren, 5 great-grandchildren, brothers, a sister. Sadly, his wife predeceased him, the former Lois Allman. He lost her in 2020. Tragically, a daughter, Sherry Schultz, predeceased him as well. Larry Bittler. Our great veterans this hour, brought to you by a Terra 519, open for fine dining tonight, downtown Scranton. Storm Tracker 16 forecast from meteorologist Joe Snedeker. Today, early morning fog. Well, that's gone bye-bye. Then a mix of clouds and sun, 72. Beautiful day today. Partly cloudy tonight, low of 48. Tuesday, more sun than clouds, milder, 82. Wednesday, sunny and humid, 88. I don't know about you guys. I actually like humidity. Is that a little silly? I don't know. Anyway, somebody texted in exactly what I was saying. I'd like to know how a president can do something by executive authority, but then for another president to get rid of it by executive authority is unconstitutional. Another, Bob LTS. My wife and I were supposed to go to Germany this September for Oktoberfest and do some sightseeing, but decided against it with all that's going on over there and the flights being like they are, maybe another time. Well, let me give you the sort of the counter position to that. And this is demographics, inexorable demographics, the demographic reality. The idiot leadership, especially Angela Merkel, they let so many migrants into their countries that Germany may not be truly Germany except in pockets. It'll be like going to Little Italy, Arthur Avenue, or Little Italy, which is only 2 blocks now. It may not exist as you remember it and as you want to see it. if you wait. So I got to tell you, my inclination would be go rather than not go, because it may not be there when everything works out. All right. Speaking of immigration and all those issues, Luciano, he says he's from near Pittston.
Yeah,
and
brother,
wait, no, Luciano, you got to let your theme song play. You got to let your theme song play.
Forgive me for my lack of patience.
You're always ready to burst out of the gate. We got to have Ice Ice Baby.
Oh,
By the way,
now.
people laugh about this theme song you chose. It's great.
It's popular in the hood, brother, especially among black people.
Yeah, but everybody gets the double entendre you intend, which is immigration control. Immigration control and enforcement. ICE.
Absolutely.
All right, Luciano, what do you got for us today, my man?
Oh, I thought you were going to play the wrong song, but let me just say this,
No, we
please.
played Ice Ice Baby.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
Yeah, we're
but
playing
let me just say this. I have a friend that's Black American, African American. He happens to be Catholic. He's a conservative Republican. I was talking to him about this. That's what I said to the call screener. You're a trained attorney. I have no legal training. How is it that the Supreme Court can vote 7-2 in favor of Donald Trump's administration on deportation of those four countries, Haiti, Cuba, Venezuela, and another country, Nicaragua. Okay, and how is it that dissenting when these two, the rest dissented? That means some of these liberal judges voted with the Republicans. If it was 7-2, then it means that how can they be overturned by these? I heard the other the guest you had. I'm not a legal scholar, but I'm using intellect and common sense and Holy Spirit knowledge. How is it that 7-2 is 7-2? How is it that 500,000 plus migrants that came under the executive order of the Biden administration? How can that not be enforced? If the Supreme Court isn't that the ultimate in authority in this country? You tell me. You're a trained lawyer. Go ahead, tell me, please. I'm ignorant about all this.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what your concern is. The problem is the Supreme Court has not been the main problem I see. They're going to come to the right decision, generally speaking, in the Supreme Court. They've got enough people who are normal. You've got two who are lunatic, left, and dumb. All right, that's Sotomayor, and they're totally Jackson, Ketanji Brown Jackson. They're totally.
She can't tell you what a woman is.
They are totally left-wing agenda-ites. Now, the rest of them, you could get some reasoning and rationale on them, so I think they'll come generally to the right decision. The thing they've got to do, in my view, is limit district court decisions to district court reality. That's it. Like Middle District of Pennsylvania. It's the whole middle of Pennsylvania and Northeast Pennsylvania. That's it. You want to do an injunction? Fine. That's the only place it applies. The same thing with a circuit court. It only applies within your circuit. And then if there's national injunctions, it has to come from the Supreme Court. They've got to get there and do something definitive. But John Roberts wants to be popular, not only in Washington, D.C. at cocktail parties, but within the Supreme Court. And he is aiding and abetting some really wishy-washy decisions.
I agree, Bob. And let me just let me just comment, please. I was with Lenny, a black brother he's a Catholic conservative, and I walk around with a maggot hat. And these radical liberals, they hate my right. I told you I went to a rally, and by the way, Bob, you're still the best. I don't care what anybody says, how I get scolded by another talk show host. You're still the best, and I have a right to my decision as a Latino, as a Hispanic, as a conservative, as a conservative Catholic. I have a right to my opinion, and with all due respect. Bob, keep up the good work, brother. That's all I have to say.
All right,
Thank
my
you,
man.
Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. See, we play it on the way in, the way out. Ice, ice, baby. That's our guy, Luciano. We'll take a break. We want to hear from our great sponsors. By the way, somebody texting in, France has the same problem. We went there on a cruise about 10 years ago. France's problem is worse, I might add. Worse. That's the crazy part. Belgium, worse than all of them. Great Britain, my man Mark Mayer, he texted me something. I want you to listen to this now. It's actually a question. Now, this is from Spiked. If you cause offense to Islamist extremists, you can go to jail. There was a recent arrest of a Jewish man. He was holding a placard mocking Hezbollah's now deceased leader, Hassan Nasrallah. He got jailed for it. Free speech is at serious and complete risk in Great Britain. They've gone nuts, and they've got a labor government that could speed their demise. Nuts. So, yeah, France is one of the worst. And the riots they had over there Saturday night, frightening. They've got no-goes. They've got no-goes in Sweden, no-goes in Brussels, Belgium. Yeah, nuts. All right, we'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. We will return. Chuck from Carbondale says, Bob, Europe has gone nuts because of the New World Order, one world government scum. They don't want nations. They want a one world government to control the people, take away rights and freedoms. The same thing they're trying to do in America, bottom line. I can't disagree with you. There's always been that. This is human nature. Human nature's undeniable, unstoppable. How we react to it is the key. Now, a publication called the European Conservative has come out with a statement. It says 380 million Christians face brutal persecution in Muslim-majority regions. A new report by Open Doors, an international human rights organization that monitors Christian persecution on a global scale, confirms that Christianity is the world's most persecuted religion, except for North Korea, where the source of persecution is communist and post-communist oppression. The cause of persecution in the other top 10 countries is mainly Islamic oppression. Now, there's a reason for this. They don't want Christianity. They don't recognize other religions. The Islamists now. Not Muslims, the Islamists. And they're dangerous. And they're an existential threat. They truly are. Let's listen for the Bloomberg Money Minute, and then we'll come back and wrap it up. Harry's holding. We'll get to him. Kenny Rogers. We were laughing about it Saturday with Murph. Where does he find this stuff? Well, this date, 1969, Murph tells us Kenny Rogers and the First Edition released their hit Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town. I remember this song. Oh, Lord. A bunch of you sent me stuff that Major League or professional sports is going all in on Pride Month. I really don't have a problem with Pride Month and people being enthusiastic about it. I just don't. I've got a problem with how far they take it. And what some of them, and as I say, I always distinguish between the lunatic leaders in the left and people who are merely along for the ride or who may be LGBTQ or plus. Those are lifestyle choices adults are more than willing to take, but see, then they go farther every time their leadership. But just as I tell you, Nancy Pelosi, because she's Italian and white, both theoretically, as I am supposed to be, she doesn't speak for me. Joe Biden doesn't speak for me. Whew, not even close. So don't take it out on the larger group of people. And by the way, it wasn't gay people who decided they were going to be part of this LGBTQ plus conglomeration. That was imposed upon them. So let it flow. Let it flow. See, it only bothers me when you're trying to replace Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day. Give them their day. Why does it have to take away the Italian-American celebration? And they do this over and over again. Yep. Let's go to Harry from Pittston. Harry, let's sneak you in here real quick. How are you, man?
I'm a blessed man, traveling back to Pennsylvania from Ohio after being with my grandkids, who I'm really
nice.
I want to thank you for the Monday morning musings as I'm driving. Gas is $2.80 out here, just so you know.
Wow.
And yeah, thanks, Wolf.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just the Judeo-Christian values that we were both raised in, you and Dunmore and me in Scranton, when it was a Camelot to grow in.
Yep.
Those are the things that we miss here, the dignity of all life. We aren't the people that are going to be, like they say, they're going to kill them. We're going to transport them, LGBTQ, whatever they are. We're not those kind of people. We'd be the first to defend them if we saw someone picking on them. You know it. It's like the bullies at school. We didn't like the bullies at school.
Yep.
But I think one of the things we have to realize is we truly are at war, and I believe it's a spiritual war, and we need to –
yes.
We need to prepare for that. And
it's a weakness. It's a weakness of spirit, and it's a perversion of freedom.
Exactly. My father said that America is losing the stomach for a war, and it isn't always about guns and missiles and bombs.
Yep.
It's about doing the right thing each and every day, and that's what we as men should do, And I just the Casey's of this world, wearing the he had to be wearing. My father would say he was lighting the loafers, and he never stood up for what was right, and I just appreciate it, and it helps me to. I just listened to a thing in closing. I'm going to let you go with this. Is a Medal of Honor winner by the name of Garcia. If you get a chance, you listen to his speech. He says, you attack America and somebody else is going to be raising your kids.
Yep.
That's the father that raised me,
Yep.
What this is, it's my country, right or wrong. We'll fix the wrongs, and do what's right every day.
Harry,
I really appreciate what you're doing.
Driving across Ohio, you're a font of wisdom this morning. I'm down with you 1,000%.
I always wanted to meet you personally, and hopefully we do at one of the famous restaurants you mentioned. I'm looking to try out the couple new ones in Scranton with my lovely wife.
Well, let's make sure. And now you got the Stegmeyer Mansion, too.
Yeah, I know. My wife's been through there when she was younger. She grew up in there. And
Wait till you see
lastly,
it.
how do I forward? I want to forward you two speeches that I've listened to, and I don't know if you probably have. But how do we do that? You're talking to a
Email.
68-year-old man here.
No, the email
Okay.
is it's Robert.Cordaro, Cordaro,
Roger that.
at Odyssey, AUDACY.com.
That's how I'm listening to you. Okay,
Yes.
okay, it's a .com.
Yes.
Roger that, brother. I know you got a break coming. You take care of yourself
Thanks,
and have
Harry.
a great day.
All right, my man. Thank you. Pleasure. Good call to finish up on. Well, guys, Sue Henry Show next. Rob O'Donnell after that. So common sense all the way around. And God willing, I'll be back with you tomorrow morning. Bo Diddley finishing things out here. Murph tells us Elias Otha Bates, better known as Bo Diddley, he died at the age of 79 this date, 2008. Murph says he was instrumental in bridging the gap between blues and rock and roll and influenced the likes of Buddy Holly, Elvis Presley, the Beatles, the Stones. Who Do You Love from 1956. It was a Bo Diddley original remade by many artists, including The Doors and George Thorogood. So we'll let Bo Diddley finish things up. And thanks, Murph, for bringing him up. We love it. Guys, have a great afternoon. But for now, we've got to say sayonara and adios. We'll do that. But gaveling to a close this meeting of the Club for Common Sense.